Okay guys, we are done with the following part. Now let's implement our single post data. So as you can see, I have opened the single post data here. So we are going to have our title and we need to have the user's data. So when I click this image, it will navigate me to his profile. Okay, and you can see we have some buttons here. I can like and dislike this post. I can leave a comment here. I can save the post, and using this button, as you can see, I can copy the link and share it on multiple social media. And also using this button, I'm able to edit this post or delete it. Okay, down here we have this image and all the post details. Okay, now if I scroll down, as you can see, we have some recommended posts. So we are going to generate this post based on our tags that the user gave. Okay, now let's implement it. So at first, when I click this post, I should be navigated to a single post, and also as you can see, we have this post route and this post ID here. So we need to print this ID, because based on this ID we are going to generate our single post data. Okay, so I'm going to close these tabs here, and inside this app.js we need to have a new route, and this should be post and this post ID. Okay, now let's add our component here. So inside this post, I'm going to write single post.js. Okay, now all you need to do is just import this component here. Okay, so in here I'm going to open this post card. So to make our navigation link, we need to have our navigate hook here. So I'm going to call it navigate, which is equal to this navigate hook coming from React Router DOM. This should be navigate. Okay, and now let's make an onClick here. So inside this div, I'm going to set an onClick function. Okay, and in here we need to set our path. If you remember, it was post and our post ID. So we are going to print this post ID dynamically. So if I click this post here, you can see we have the post route with this post ID. If I click another post, you can see we also can get the post ID here. Okay, so now let's implement the logic. At first, let's get this post ID here. So in here, I'm going to get this post ID from this use params hook. And down here, we need to have a useEffect hook to fetch our single post data. Okay, so let's define a function here, fetch post, and it should be an asynchronous function. And we can call this function down here. Okay, now inside here we need to have a try and catch block. Let's define our post ref here. Okay, now we need to import this doc, which is coming from Firebase. Let's import it manually. So in here I'm going to import this doc from Firebase and Firestore. Okay, our function will have some arguments. The first one is db, and the second one is going to be our collection name, which is post, and also we need to have our post ID to generate our specific post here. Now let's import this db here. Okay, so down here we need to get our post, which is equal to await get doc. It's coming from Firebase Firestore, and we need to pass our post ref inside. Now we need to check whether we have data inside this database or not. So I'm going to say if get post.exists. It's a function. Then we are going to get this post data, and it's coming from this get post.data. Okay, now let's have a user state hook here. So I'm gonna call this post and set post is going to be equal to user state hook and will be empty object by default. Okay, so we're just going to set this post. Okay, and we are going to get all the post here, post data, along with the ID of this document. So the ID is going to be post ID. Okay, now you can have a loading also. So in here I'm going to say loading, and it's going to be equal to user state hook, and it will be false by default. Okay, now let's set it to be true here. And once the post is fetched, we want to set it to be false. For this error, I'm going to send this toast notification, toast.error, and the value is going to be error.message. Okay, and that's it. So inside this dependency, we need to pass our post ID. So whenever our post ID gets changed, this data will be refreshed. Okay, now we need to have our users data. So again, we can import that use fetch hook in here, but I don't want to do that. And instead, I want to fetch that user data inside this user fetch hook. So inside here, I'm going to get rid of this for now. And we need to set a condition. So if we have this post data dot user ID, then we are going to have a new ref. So I'm going to call it user ref, which is equal to this doc function. We need to add our DB, and this time our collection should be users. So now in here we need to add our specific user ID, which is coming from post data. So in here I'm going to write post data dot user ID. Okay, now we need to get the user here, and which is equal to await, and get doc here, and we are going to pass this reference here. Okay, and similar to the previous one, we need to check whether we have data. So get user dot exist, then we are going to get this user data here, and it's going to be equal to this get user dot data. Okay, and finally we are going to set this variable here, and following that we are going to get all the user data. So it should be user data with the ID of this post. Okay, so now down here, if I console log this post, you can see we have all the data here, and all of them are here. You can see we have our email, we have this username, and we have our user ID, user image. Okay, so we don't have to fetch our users separately and then find our specific user using find method. Now we have all of them here. Okay, I'm gonna change this to be a fragment. Now let's check whether we have a loading or not. So in here I'm going to check if we have a loading. We want to print this loading component. Let's import this loading. Okay, and otherwise we are going to have a section here, and this section will have a class name of width 90% for mobile devices. For MD devices above, width should be 80%, and for large devices above, width should be 60%. Okay, we need to have our MX auto to bring them in the middle, and padding Y should be 3 rem. Okay, now inside here at first we need to have a heading 2 for our title. So if you want, you can structure all the data from this post. So in here you can write const object equal to this post. Now we can get all the data. So I'm gonna get this title. Okay, now let's add our title here. So this heading 2 will have a class name. Text should be 4 pixel. Font is going to be extra bold. Okay, and this should be capitalized. Now let's check it. As you can see, here is our title. Alright, and one more thing, I forget to add our user ID in this dependency. So in this case, it's gonna be post.user_id. Okay, and now following that, we need to have our profile. So if I navigate to this website and open this one, you can see we need to have our profile. So when I click this image, it will open his profile. So in here, we need to have another div. So this div will have a flex box to separate them from each other. So flex item center, gap should be 2, and padding y is going to be 2 rem. Now inside here, at first we need to have our image. So the image is going to be user image, and we need to have an alt. It's gonna be user image. Now let's have our class name here. So width should be 3 rem, height 3 rem. We need to set the object to be cover and rounded full, as well as cursor pointer. Okay, now you can see here is our image, and let's print our username and that time here. So down this image, we need to have another div for them. So inside this div, we are going to have another div with the class name of capitalized. I just copy this capitalized from here. Okay, so we need to print our username and the follow button here. So I'm gonna have a span tag, and let's print our username here. Okay, you can see here is our username, and following that we need to have our following button. Okay, so we are going to add that following button when the user ID who is currently logged in is not matching with the ID who is posting this post. Okay, so at first we need to get our current user from the context API, and down here we need to set a condition. If current user.uid is not matching with this user ID, okay, then we want to print that follow button here. Okay, okay, now if I open this follow button here, you can see we need to pass the user ID. So in here I just simply say user ID is equal to user ID. I have in the structure this user ID here. Okay, now you can see this problem is gone, but because this post is belong to this user, we cannot see that button. So let me open another post, this one. Now you can see we have this username and this follow button. I can follow him and unfollow. Okay, we have this user profile problem here. Don't worry, we will solve this problem. So now let's style this follow button. As you can see, we don't have that rounded border here. So I'm gonna open this follow button, and inside here we need to set a condition on this class name. Okay, let's minimize this. As you can see, we have this border. So we wanna set this border when we are inside this home page, I mean inside this slash path. We wanna set this border, otherwise we wanna get rid of that border. So up here, at first let's get our path name. So it's coming from use location. Okay, now in here I'm gonna copy this from here. Okay, and I just say if path name is equal to this slash, then I wanna print this border, otherwise it's gonna be this empty string. Okay, now as you can see, we are inside this home page. We have this border, but if I open this single post here, you can see we don't have that border anymore. So down here, let's print this time and also this date. Okay, and down this div, we are going to have a paragraph, and this paragraph will have a class name of text small. Text color should be gray and 500. Okay, and we need to import our function, this readTime function again. Let's import this function manually, and inside this parentheses we are going to send an object, and it's gonna be double underscore HTML, which is equal to this disk. So we just get rid of that HTML elements inside it. Okay, and following that, we need to have our date, the time this post has been posted. Okay, we need to write here a minute read. Okay, following this, we need to have a span tag, and let's import our moment function from our moment library, and we need to pass this created dot from now. Okay, and this span tag will have a class name of margin left 1. So now when I click this user profile, I want to be navigated to his profile. So up here, we need to get our navigate hook. It's gonna be use navigate. Okay, now inside this image, we need to have an onClick function, and it will navigate us to this slash profile and user ID. Okay, so if I click this image, you can see I'm able to open his profile here. Okay, and let's try it on other profile. If I open this here, you can see here is the user profile. Alright, so following that, we are going to have these buttons that will help us leave a comment, and we can save this post here and save it. Okay, we need to have this drop down, so we can do some actions in here also. And if the post is mine, as you can see, we will have an extra button that will help me edit and delete this story. Okay, so each of these buttons are gonna be a separate component. Now let's implement them. Okay, as you can see, we have 2 buttons on the left side and 3 buttons on the right side. So in here, I'm going to have a new div. Okay, and this div will have a class name of flex item center, justify between, and we need to have a border bottom here and also a border top. So border color should be gray and 200. And also inside here, at first let's print the left buttons. So on the left side we have the like and comment buttons. Now let's add them inside a separate div, and it should be flex item center. Also we need to add a gap of 5. Okay, we need to have 2 components here, like and also comment. And down this one, we need to have 3 more buttons, so it will be inside a separate div with the class name of flex items center, and padding top should be 2, and also we need to have a gap of 5. Okay, now let's add those buttons component. So the first one is going to be this save post. We already made this component. The second one is going to be share post, and the final button is going to be our actions button. Okay, now let's import this save and actions component here. So up here, I'm going to import it, Alright, and also we need to make these components. So inside this post, inside this action folder, we are going to make these components. Okay, and we need to have a comment component here. Okay, now let's import them. So in here I'm going to import this like and also this comment. Okay, now we need to have another component for our share post. So up here I'm going to add this component, and now let's import it. Okay, and also if I open this save post here, you can see we need to pass our single post. Okay, so in here we need to pass this post equal to be this post here. Okay, now let's check it. Okay, seems we have an error here. So if I inspect the browser, okay, this error is happening inside our save post. I think this is because of this post. It has some asynchronous behavior, so we can set a condition here. If we have post, we wanna print this save post component here. Okay, now if I refresh the page here, you can see we don't have that error anymore. Okay, seems we have another problem here, and this problem is happening inside this drop down. As you can see, if I open this drop down here and click outside, it's not giving me any error. But if I click outside here, you can see it's giving me error. So to solve this problem, we need to take this function only when the drop down is open. So I'm gonna go back to my VS Code, and in here let's open the drop down. Okay, and in here we need to set a condition if this show drop is true, and also if we have this drop ref.current, then we wanna this action to be happen. Okay, and also we need to pass some dependencies here. So we need to pass this drop ref and also this show drop. Okay, and now you can see we don't have that error anymore. Alright, now let's implement these icons. Okay, so I'm going to open this like component here. Okay, and we need to change this to be button, and also the text is going to be this icon. Okay, and now we need to import this icon from React icons. Okay, now you can see here is my icon, but we need to have this like counter also. So beside this we need to have a span tag, and I'm gonna set it to be 1. Okay, now let's give it a class name. So it should be flex item center, gap should be 1, and text is going to be small. Okay, and we can give style for this icon. So text should be XL, and okay, now you can see my like button is looking good. And as you can see, we need to have some padding from the top and bottom. Okay, and in here I'm gonna give a padding Y of 0.5 frame. Alright, now you can see it's looking good. We will have an icon for this comment also. Now I'm gonna open this comment component from here. Okay, and let's change this to be button, and also the text should be this icon. Again, this icon is coming from React icons, and we need to have this counter also for this comment. It should be 1. Okay, and we will have the same class name as this one, So I just copy this from here and simply paste them here. Okay, and for this icon we will have a class name of text large. Okay, now you can see our icons are looking good, and we will have the share post. It will be a drop down again. If I click this one, you can see we will have another drop down here with these icons. Now I'm going to open that component, which is share post, and let's change this to be drop down. Okay, and if you remember, we need to pass some user state hook. So in here I'm gonna make this user state hook show drop and set show drop equal to user state hook, and it will be false by default. Okay, now let's pass them, and also we need to have a size. So we are going to get this size for our drop down, and this time width should be 12 frame. Okay, alright, and this is our drop down, but we need to have our buttons here. So we need to have a div first, and this div will get a class name of relative, and also we need to add our button here. So the button icon should be from our React icons also. So I just simply paste it here. Now let's import it. So I'm gonna copy this, but this time it should be this icon, and it's gonna be CI. Okay, now let's give a class name for this icon, and text should be to Excel. Okay, you can see here is my button. I can set an on click for this button. So on click should be set show drop to be not show drop. Okay, now let's add the items inside this drop down. So if I open this drop down here, as you can see we have some buttons here. So we are going to use another library. So that library will help us share our post in this specific social medias. So that's called React Share library. Just open this React Share npm. Okay, and as you can see we have this command in here, and I'm gonna open my terminal. And here we need to install this library. Okay, now let's see how we can use it. So if I scroll down, you can preview the demo in here using this link, and also you can import any buttons that we need from this React Share. We have this Twitter share button, we have WhatsApp, and any other buttons that you need. I just need a few buttons from here, and okay, let's close them. I just simply paste them here. Okay, so it's gonna be this Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, and also we will have another button for our copy link. Okay, and it will be a copy link button. We can implement it separately. Now first of all, let's add these buttons inside our drop down. So again we are going to use a reusable button in here. Okay, so let's close this here, and inside this drop down we need to have our reusable button. Again we need to have our click function. It will be empty string for now, and we need to have a title for this. So the first title is going to be copy link. Okay, and also we need to have an icon for this. So this icon is coming from React icons. I'm gonna copy and paste it here. Okay, so I just copy and paste all of them here. So I have imported them from React icons. Okay, and let's make this reusable component down here. So I'm gonna make it here. Okay, we need to get this props, click, and this icon and also we need to get our title. Okay, now we are going to add our icon and title inside this button. So at first we need to have a span tag for our icon. Okay, and I'm gonna add this icon here, and also we're going to add our title dynamically. Let's have a class name for this, padding 2. Hover effect should be BG gray and 200. Okay, and we need to change the text color also on hover. Text black with the opacity of 80. Width should be full. Text small. Okay, and text should be left. Following that, we need to have a flex box to separate this icon and title from each other. So I'm gonna add flex item center. Gap should be 2 and cursor pointer. Okay, I'm gonna close them. Now you can see here is my button. Okay, we need to have some sizes for this icon, so I'm gonna add a class name here, and text should be 1.2 rem. Alright, now you can see we have a much more bigger icon here. Okay, now let's add other icons. So up here I'm going to copy and paste this, and this time this should be. Now for this icon, I'm gonna copy this Twitter icon from our React icons. Okay, now let's copy and paste it for 2 times. This one should be Facebook, and this should be LinkedIn. Now let's copy their icons here. Okay, as you can see, here are our icons, and seems they will be darker in here. So what we need to do is we can set a text color here. So text gray and 500, and now you can see we have a brighter text and hover. Now you can see our drop down is ready here. Later on we can implement the functionality. Now let's add the rest of our post items. So we need to have our image displayed here. So I'm gonna open the single post again. Okay, so first of all we are going to hide these actions, because if I open another post here, let's say this one, and this post is not belong to me, you can see I can still see these buttons, and it's not a good practice. So we need to hide this when this user is not matching with the user who is currently logged in. So in here I'm going to set a condition: if current user dot uid is equal to our post dot user id, then we want to show this component here. Okay, we don't have that button anymore. And let's add the rest of our items here. So down this div we're going to add our content. So it's gonna be inside this div with the class name of margin top 3 rem, and inside here at first let's print this post image. It's gonna be post image, and post image also we need to have a class name for this, which should be full. Height is going to be 400 pixel, and object cover. Okay, now you can see we have this image. Okay, we need to set it back to be false, because every time the page refreshes it will be opened. Okay, and now let's add our text. Okay, so down this image I'm gonna have a self-closing div, and it will have a class name of margin top 6, and also we are going to add this dangerously set inner HTML to be underscore HTML equal to this description. Okay, now you can see Here are all the text of this content. Alright, and finally we will have this recommended from Medium. Now let's get this recommended post. Okay, so down this section we are going to have a new component called recommended. Okay, it's giving us error. You can actually wrap it with a fragment also. Okay, now let's add this recommended component. So inside this post I'm gonna add this component recommended .jsx. Okay, let's import it here. Alright, now you can see we have this recommended component here. Okay, so inside this recommended component we are going to share all the posts that has some tags in common with our post. So now if I open this Firebase file store here, and if I open any post, as you can see we have some tags. Okay, so we are going to check which one has some common tags inside this tags array, and then we will display them down their post. Okay, as you can see in this two posts we have this book in common. We have book in here also, and this one has different tags. Okay, if you want you can add some more posts. So I prefer to copy posts from this website. So I'm gonna open this post here and let's add it. Okay, and let's publish it now. Okay, here we get a problem. You can see if we have a new post, it will not be displayed at the top of my post. So to solve this problem, I'm gonna open this hook again, use fetch hook, and we need to import a new function following this query, and it's gonna be order by. Okay, and we need to sort this post based on created time, and this is gonna be descendant type. Okay, as you can see this is the last post that I have posted here. So we have this error inside this user. This is because I have sorted this post based on this created, and if I open this database here, as you can see inside user we don't have any created, so I can add a field here, and the type should be this timestamps. Okay, and let's pick a date here. Let's say this one, and time, don't worry about the time here. Okay, and also for this one, okay, let's add a field and create it. It should be timestamp, and let's pick today. Okay, now you can see here we have our user. Okay, we need to have this created inside our sign up form also. So in here I'm going to look for sign up. As you can see we are going to send all this data, so I'm gonna send this created to be date.now. Okay, so our date will be printed when the user make a new account. Alright, we are done with this part, and I'm gonna open this. Now let's work on our recommended post. So at first in here we are going to fetch all our posts. So we are gonna get this data which is equal to use fetch, and now let's import it here. And this shouldn't be inside this curly braces. Okay, and we need to pass our collection names. It should be post. Okay, so to get our recommended post we need to define a use effect hook here, and now we need to have a temporary variable here. I'm gonna call this recommended post, and it will be equal to empty array for now. Inside here we are going to map through this data. So if we have any data, then we are going to map through this data. In this case I'm gonna use for each. Okay, we are going to get each and every post here, and now inside here let's get our post tags. Now we need to get our single post from the single post component also. So I'm gonna pass this post. Again we need to wrap this. If we have post, we wanna print this recommended component. Okay, so now let's find our common tags here. So in here I'm gonna say common tags, and we need to filter our post tags here. So I'm gonna select this post tag dot filter. We are going to get each and every tag in here, and we need to check if post dot tags, I mean this one. So let's rename this because they are looking the same. I'm gonna name this single post. Okay, and in here we can rename it. Okay, and we are going to say if single post dot tags dot include this tags. Okay, this should be includes. Okay, so in here we just simply filter through this post tags and check whether any tags are in common from this single post data here. Okay, so now down here we need to check if we have some common tags here, or if common tags dot length is greater than 0, then we just simply push that data to this empty array. So I'm gonna call it here dot push, and we are going to push all the posts here and also this common tags. Okay, and we need to set some dependencies here, so data and single post. So now I'm going to have a new use state hook. I'm gonna call this common tags and set common tags, and it will be empty array by default. So down here I just simply set this common tag to be recommended post. Okay, so now if I can't select this common tags here, as you can see we have 3 posts in common. So this is the first post which has book, reading and study. If I open another post, you can see it has book, reading and post. So reading and book are in common between them, and also the last one also has this book tags here. Okay, so now let's display them. As you can see we have the text at the beginning, so I'm gonna copy this text here, and let's get rid of this common tags. Okay, so we need to have a section here with the class name of bg gray and 100. Now inside it we are going to have a new div. So I'm gonna add a class name here. Width should be 90%. For empty devices above, width should be 80%, and also for large devices above, width should be 60%. Okay, mx auto, and padding y should be 3 rem. Now inside here we need to have our heading 2 with this text that I just copied. I'm gonna have a class name here, text XL, and font should be bold. Okay, you can see here is our text, and down this one we need to display our common post. Okay, so down here we need to first set a condition. So if common tags dot length is smaller than 0, then we are going to return a message here, and otherwise we just simply map through this common tags dot map, and we are going to get each and every post inside, and we'll return a new component. Okay, and I'm gonna call this post. Now let's add this component down here, and should be recommended post. Okay, we are going to get this post here, and we need to send post to be post, and also key should be post.id. Okay, so for this error message we are going to say, so now let's check it. As you can see, for this post we have 3 recommended posts. Now let's display them down here. So at first I'm going to destructure everything. Okay, and all are coming from our post, and we need to get our username as well as the user image. Okay, so I'm gonna get rid of this heading 1, and down here we need to have a div with the class name of with full, and cursor should be pointer. Okay, so inside this div, at first let's display our image. So it's gonna be the post image, and for alt I'm gonna write post image here. Okay, let's have a class name for this, and the class name should be with full. Height is going to be 200 pixel, and object cover. Now you can see here are our post images. Okay, we need to add them inside a div so we can separate them from each other, like this one. If I open another post here, you can see they are beside each other. So I'm gonna wrap this with a div. Okay, so I'm gonna copy this from here, and now we need to have a div here. Okay, and inside here we are going to map through this. So this div will have a class name of grade, and grade column of cart, and also gap should be 2 rem, and finally margin y should be 3 rem. Okay, this should be columns. Okay, now you can see they are beside each other. So this cart is not a Tailwind class. I added that manually inside this tailwind.config.js. As you can see, I have added this cart manually here inside this grade template columns. Okay, so now let's keep up. Down here I'm gonna have a new div with the class name of flex, items center, and gap should be 1. Also padding y is going to be 1. So inside here we're going to add our user image like this one and the username. Okay, so let's add an image tag here. It should be user image, and also we need to have a class name for this. Width is going to be 2 rem, height 2 rem, object should be cover, and rounded full. Now let's add our username. So it should be a heading 3, and let's print our username here. Okay, and also we need to give a class name, text small, and it should be capitalized. Okay, so we don't have this username here. We are going to get this based on our post user ID. So in here I'm going to write data and use fetch. We are going to fetch our users. Okay, and now let's find the specific user. If we have data, data.find. We are going to get each and every user here, and just check user.id is equal to this user ID. Okay, and I can structure this username and user image. Okay, now let's check it. As you can see, now we have our username and this user image. Okay, following that, we need to have our title and this description. So I'm gonna add this down this div. We are going to have a heading 2 with the class name of font extra bold, and also we need to have leading of 5 and line clamp should be 2. We are going to add our title here. Okay, it should be clamp. Alright, and let's add our description. So down here we are going to have a self-closing div again with the class name of line clamp of 2. Okay, and we need to have margin y of 3. Text color should be gray and 500, and leading of 5. So we are going to add this dangerously set inner HTML. It should be HTML and description. Okay, you can see here is our description. Let's add this reading time and the date here. So down here I'm going to have a paragraph with the class name of text small. Text color should be gray and 600. Okay, now inside here we need to get our reading time function, which we made inside our utils, helper function. So I'm gonna get this reading time, and it's coming from our util folder inside here and inside this helper function. Okay, and we simply pass this object underscore HTML and description. It should be read time, not reading time. I'm gonna copy and paste them here. Now you can see we have that times here, and we need to write minute read. Okay, alright, and following that we need to have our date. So down here we need to have a span tag with the class name of margin left 3, and we need to import moment library here and add our created date. We need to format it based on month and day. Okay, now you can see here are our posts and they are completed. Alright, so when I click each post, I want to be navigated to that single post data. Okay, so in here I'm going to import navigate, use navigate. It's gonna be null by default, and we need to set an onClick to this div, and we should be navigated to this slash post and our post ID. Okay, so let's open this post. You can see I'm able to open this post, and this post also has some recommended posts, but the problem is it is recommending the post itself also. So post number 2 is just added, and you can see we have this post also. So we need to actually exclude this post from our recommended list. So what we need to do here, up here inside this use effect, before this tags we need to check if post dot id is equal to single post dot id. we just simply return this. We don't want to include it inside our common text post. Okay, now you can see it's not recommending our own post. Alright, and we need to have some padding between them. So, and you can see this div is belong to the user, so I'm gonna add 3 here. Okay, now it's looking good. Okay guys, and we are going to display only 4 posts inside our recommended from Medium component, not more than 4 posts, and they should be recommended randomly. So in here, inside this use effect, if I scroll down, at first we need to sort our post. So I'm gonna sort this recommend.sort. Okay, and we need to have this arrow function math.round times, it should be a function, times minus 0.5. So with the help of this logic, we are going to generate some random post. And now we need to generate only 4 recommended posts. So in here, I'm going to say minimum recommendation. It should be 4. Okay, and now we need to slash this post array. So slash post is equal to this recommended post dot slash. It should be 0 and minimum recommendation. Okay, and all we need to do is just set this common tag to a new variable. Okay, and that's it. So if you have more than 4 posts, they will not be displayed here, only 4 of them will be displayed. And if we refresh the page, we will get the recommended post randomly. So you can see this post was the second before and now it's 1. So we are going to get this post randomly. Alright guys, we are done with this part. So I'm going to push this. Let's state all the changes here. Okay,